Okay, hey everyone. This is kind of a comical video, a little bit, based on some of my experience in traveling around Latin America. Where is that line where it's more or less a requirement that you really need to know Spanish in order to really take in and really enjoy that culture and really have a great experience? Okay, because countries are different. Countries are definitely different. I'm going to tell you a couple stories, some of the experiences that I've had, and it'll be interesting. So stick around. All right, let's say that you're moving through Canada or you're moving through the United States of America and you're going down through Mexico. Okay. And so, of course, that entire time, more or less, unless you're in the southwestern part of the United States or if you're in Miami, because in Miami, basically, you can pretty much like live you could pretty much live in Miami and just to speak Spanish. I've more or less I've been able to do that to get by just with Spanish, just in Miami. And but that'll be a whole other topic about Miami. You could talk forever about Miami. Okay, but in any case, you're moving down, okay, and then you move down through the United States, and then you're going into Mexico, okay. Now, Mexico is basically like, I see it from my experience, almost like an extension of the United States. It's basically like an extension of the Southwest for the most part. That's the way it seems to me in my experience. Okay. And so if you are from the United States and if you're in, I don't know, Tijuana, or if you're in Mexico City, someplace like that, okay. There are people from the United States and Canada and all that. There are people all over the place, especially near the border. Like a lot of times when when you're doing manufacturing, I'm very grateful that I've had the opportunity, to travel to a lot of places as part of work. And I've supported products that were manufactured down in that area, among other countries. And right along the border, it's kind of funny that you're in the border, and let's just say you're at the airport or wherever it may be, and basically you see all the other people from the United States, and they're saying, "Okay, man, who's sourcing what?" Pretty much. Okay, and in any case, if you're walking down the street in some of these cities, as an example, okay, oftentimes you don't need to know barely any Spanish a lot of the times. Okay, they will come up to you and they will basically just start with English. They'll lead with English with you. If you look like you're from the United States or like from a Western country, they'll just lead with English. Okay, so more or less in Mexico, it's really not a requirement. You can usually get around in a lot of the major cities without any issues, really. So, and that's no surprise, of course, and that's just my experience. But of course, I mean, I enjoy talking Spanish to the people, but if they lead and they're comfortable with English. A lot of times, the people there, they want to practice. They want to practice their English. They want to get better at it. And of course, I love to help people that way. If they want to speak English with me, it's no problem. And so that's pretty much how Mexico is. And I'm sure that that's no surprise for a lot of people. Okay, but as you keep moving down, it's kind of interesting because once you get into Central America, a little more, a lot of the cities aren't as big. Okay, they're not as big. Well, Mexico City is a huge city, right? And a lot of them, once you start getting into the rainforest a little more, and if you're there for work, oftentimes you're really not there for work that much because there's not really a lot of industry in a couple of those countries there. Costa Rica has a little more industry that's there. However, oftentimes if you get out of those cities a little more, you kind of have to know a little more of Spanish in order to get around. Like as an example, Nicaragua, places like that, you're probably going to need to know if you really want to appreciate and have a great experience, right? It's probably better to know a little more Spanish when you're there. Okay. However, once you move through those Central American countries, and each country is very fascinating in its own way. You know, it could be different things. It could be the coast, as an example, or it could be the rainforest, or it could be like all of the beauty, the waterfalls, all the greenery, all of that. There's so much you can experience and talk about in those countries. There, we're going to move through today, and we're going to go to Panama. Okay, so we're going to go to Panama City. And if anyone has traveled down to Latin America, they probably are going to tell you that at least one time they probably touched down in Panama City. Okay, so what do I do when I'm in Panama City? Well, I'm just moving through. And that's basically like everyone I talk to in Panama. It's like I'm asking, it's like, ¿dónde va? ¿Dónde va? ¿Dónde está acá? Or something. They always say, you know, oh yeah, I'm just passing through, or oh yeah, I'm touching down. I have a layover here. I might go to a hotel for a little while and relax, and then I'm gonna go on my way. Something like that. And that's happened to me as well. You know, that happens pretty often, you know, where it's like sometimes you might have like 10 hours, 12 hours or something, and there are some very affordable hotels just outside of Panama City or in Panama City, right outside of the airport. You know, you can go there and you can hang out, you know, go see a canal for a little while, have a little fun, and be on your way, right? And in any case, oftentimes you can get by with English in Panama pretty well, you know, because, you know, of course, Panama, as you may know, Panama has been a big part of Western history with the canal that's been there, you know, starting out with, as I recall, starting out with the French and then moving on to the United States. They had control of that canal for some time. Ever since the independence of Panama from Colombia and Gran Colombia many years ago. And so even the currency is pegged to the US dollar last time that I saw. And so oftentimes you can get by with English just fine. However, it's always more fun, you know, to speak the Spanish, and being a translator is also very fun as well. And I know that sometimes I wind up getting thrown into the mix as a translator, which is often very fun. And just remember, a little word of advice, you know, always give an accurate translation. You don't want to be funny about things, okay? And just say, oh, well, you know, they said this, they said it. No, you always want to be accurate, and you want to tell them and be really, really helpful with people. And oftentimes it turns out that if you talk to one person, you know, you're speaking to them in English, and then you talk to someone else in Spanish that's there, you know, and if they both hear you, next thing you know, you may be a translator. Okay, so just a little warning to you as you get better with your English or with your Spanish, right? Which opens up a whole new interesting experience, right? So that's pretty much Panama. Okay, so passing through. Panama is passing through. We're passing through Panama. Doesn't matter if you're flying, coming in the airport, or if you're on a boat moving through, you're passing through. Okay, you're passing through Panama. Okay, so now as you're moving south out of Panama City, and let's say that you start getting into like Colombia then. Okay, so you start getting into South America. Okay, with Colombia, like you go to Bogota, or a lot of people like Medellin as well. I've had friends, colleagues in Cali. If you love to dance, hey, that's where it's at, man. If you love the salsa, if you like the salsa, that's where it's at. Okay, you will love it there. You'll love it in Cali. You know, that's what they do. They love to dance there. It's just so interesting. Okay, but in Bogota and other places, if you're in the larger cities, you should be able to get by with some English. However, I'm just warning you that there's a large portion of the population, and you may already know this, but just through trial and error, I noticed that a lot of people, they don't, you know, they really don't speak. They really don't speak that much English at all. You know, once you start getting down, like in Colombia, as an example, they don't speak a lot of English. And as you continue down through Colombia, right? And so you're moving down, and let's say you go to Ecuador, you go to Peru, you go down to, like, especially in the southern, you know, like the southern cone, right? Like Rio de la Plata, you know, the southern cone, like down in like Uruguay or Argentina, someplace like that. Okay, if you thought that they don't speak very much English in Colombia, well, it's time for a surprise. Like, as an example, if you're going to, say, Argentina, or you're going to Uruguay, someplace like that, let's just say that you're just bouncing from country to country. as an example. Okay, so like Mercosur as an example, like all of the Latin American countries that are part of the Mercosur treaty or network, and you're just bouncing from one country to another. When you're on the plane, okay, you hear the announcements and you hear the crew talking, okay, and it's all Spanish. It's kind of funny. It's like I'm looking at the flight attendant, or I'm looking at them, and I'm just kind of thinking, what are they thinking? It's like they're talking in Spanish, and then maybe they're thinking a little bit like, um, I just did my announcements in Spanish. Should I say something else? Should I like say another language or something? And like the other person says, no, 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 we're good. Just speak Spanish, because we speak Spanish, right? So you speak Spanish. So when you're down there, it's pretty interesting, okay? Because it's pretty much that is when you're firmly in the territory of, hey man, we speak Spanish here, okay? And you can usually find, so you can find some people, eventually you'll find someone who speaks English, like if you're in the cities and all of that. However, it has been, you go a trip, I mean, you can like go for weeks and like not speak a word of English, just based on your experiences going down. You can go for a whole week, you can go for weeks, never speak a word of English, and once you get down to that point. Okay, so it's like I'd say like the English scale. I'd say down in Argentina and Uruguay, or like around there, like maybe if you're in Chile a bit, it's like 80%, 90% over this way towards Spanish, right? And that is what they prefer, and they speak Spanish, and it makes perfect sense, right? That would be like, if we're native English speakers, we would think the same way, wouldn't we? Yeah, absolutely. And I'd have to say probably. And so now I can't forget the one large nation over to the east, right? It's so funny. It's so interesting with Brasileiros when you're working with people or you're talking to people in Brazil. And I just want to touch on this for just a second, okay? Because I think that Brazil is a little similar. It's a little similar to like the southern countries in South America, a little more. And for me, and just in my experience, I think there's a reason why my Portuguese is not as good as it could be. And that's because whenever I talk to people, when I'm at an airport or when I'm on business, whatever it might be, we understand each other just fine. I mean, it's really no big deal that the languages are close enough, as I understand it, based on vocabulary, that they may be, and overlapping, that the similarity in the vocabulary may be upwards of almost 90% or so. And of course you have your false friends and all of this, but more or less to get your point across, you know, this has happened to me too many times where I just speak Spanish, they speak Portuguese. Okay, we pretty much we understand and we're perfectly fine, So that's one of the reasons why my Portuguese isn't as good, But I'm pretty sure that they can understand me better than I can understand them. But I'm getting a little better with the dialect, the dialect and in the pronunciation, especially with the Brazilian dialect of Portuguese. But in any case, they're pretty much firmly over on that side as well, I'd say. So if you really want to enjoy yourself, you really got to learn that Portuguese or that Spanish, to really dive in and really learn that culture well. So I think in summary, if I have to say where is that line where if you really want to enjoy the enriching culture, of these different countries, of course, my rule would be learn Spanish and try to speak it everywhere, right? But if I have to say where that line is, I'd say it's probably once you get into Colombia. That's what that line is going to be. When you get out of Panama and you go into like Colombia, like somewhere in Colombia is like that line, right? Where if you want to have a good time, you want to have a really enriching experience, you got to learn that Spanish, you have to learn it. Okay. And believe me, you won't be disappointed if you learn the Spanish or the Portuguese. you know, because it opens another world. The people think differently in that language, and it's very interesting. It's very interesting how they think differently and how they translate things over. The things are translated differently, the different words are used. It's very interesting that it's like you open a key to a new world and everything just kind of you learn and everything just crystallizes around you. It's very interesting. Okay, so in any case, I hope you found that entertaining. And so please learn other languages. It's fascinating to learn all about people, and about their cultures and everything. And they will appreciate it and they'll respect you so much, for putting in that effort, and I think that you have a great time. I think it'll be very interesting for you, a very interesting experience, and it'll be a very enriching experience for you as well. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you like this video, if you got this far, please help me out. You know what to do, and I would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, hasta luego. Bye bye.